And we're joined now from Cairo by Mr. Ibrahim El Darawy, writer and political analyst. Welcome to Qnews, Mr. Ibrahim. How is today's nationwide general strike reshaping the public discourse in Israel regarding the genocide war on Gaza and the fate of the remaining detainees?
We should affirm that Netanyahu is still moving forward for his war on the strip and targeting Hamas, and with no single evidence that the captives what took place today as an objection for what Netanyahu is doing from a strike into rebel, meaning that some sectors in the Israeli state announce its rebel. So we're talking about throughout nearly 2 years, the opposition to murder the families of the captive couldn't do anything with Netanyahu. This is the problem, as Netanyahu's relying on the very extremist Jewish doctrine. So the Jews on the street are stronger than the circularism. By the way, circularism is the main doctrine of the Israeli state. But whoever is controlling the Israeli state is the extreme Jewish group. So that's why Netanyahu is relying on. So to start with, it is a strong beginning, but would it be having an American support, or the American support will be only for Netanyahu and the hardliner of Zionism, particularly that the notion of displacement for Netanyahu is still there, and President Trump himself is still considering the idea, which is the Riviera of the Middle East, as Egypt had warned already of the forced displacement, as it is a red line, and Cairo would not permit in light of the second chariot to get on. We're talking about the first plan of generals, and then the second plan of the generals, and then the chariots would get on the second, announced by the Minister of Defense. And the process of starvation that would is still in place. So the chariot down is a process of killing, and what's happening in the Gaza Strip in the shortage of medicine, food, is represent as a very dire humanitarian conditions, and that would constitute a shameful sign before the whole world. So the second chariot down operation is a need to confine the Palestinians in Rafah that cannot contain or absorb 2 million of the Palestinian people. We're talking about incursion of the camps that shows that Israel wants to fully demolish the housing buildings completely, which is a matter, I think, it is fully rejected from the international community.
Yes, sir, I want to ask you about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has condemned anti-war protesters who have come out across the country demanding an end to the war. To what extent is the Israeli government ignoring warnings from the public about the dangers its operations pose to the lives of detainees still held in Gaza?
I think that Benjamin Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben Gvir wanted to blame and accuse the demonstrators, and they put them in the state of treasury. Whoever is demonstrating in Tel Aviv isn't only for calling the return of the captives, but and that's just a pretext used by the Israeli side in creating a state of fear inside the demonstrators. So we're talking about a general strike, and if it continues for 2 weeks, it will cripple the movement in Israel politically and economically. And I think that the pretext laid down by Benjamin Netanyahu isn't going to do any good. And I think whoever is going to support the Israeli side, meaning by the return of the captives, there is no differences between killing the Palestinian. The issue is just to return the detainees.
Speaking of the detainees, sir, what message are the families of detainees sending by organizing one of the largest demonstrations since the war began? Is the government willing to change its strategy based on this growing domestic pressure?
I think that the Israeli government wants to change its trajectory towards what happened by the demonstrators. Demonstrators wanted to send a message to the government, the Western world, on top of which the U.S. That message could be reached by the families of the detainees. The actions by the U.S. would be driven by the families, meaning that the U.S. to respond to the families of the detainees and their demands. But Netanyahu and the far-right coalition want to have a pretext through which to storm the Gaza Strip and destroy it completely. If the deal was in hold, so we having no need for Israel to strike Gaza in that way. And therefore, the international community may intervene. And I think that Netanyahu doesn't wish to the release of the captives, as they are the cause of Netanyahu's condemnation of what is he doing. If Netanyahu took him, it will be the pretext to enter Gaza, to eliminate Gaza, and to return and release the detainees. That will be the priorities of Benjamin Netanyahu. And even though it was from his priority, but no single detainees wouldn't have been released, but through the negotiation. That we've happened throughout the three phases took place in January, and now we're talking about a comprehensive deal. But I think Cairo, Doha, very seriously try to have a very soon to strike a deal and an urgent intervention by the U.S. The message isn't only directed to Benjamin Netanyahu to force him to come down from the tree he put himself on top of it, but he just wanted to continue to the war and to eliminate the Palestinian people, whoever is in there in the Gaza Strip, women and children, and the systematic starvation. We're talking about Chariot Gadon too, which is a real catastrophe. We're talking about the north, the central, and Gaza City, and then Khan Yusuf, Jabalia, and then confined the citizens in El Mawasi direct to the sea, and then the Palestinian Rafah, that would be in a very catastrophe. Half of 2 million Palestinian people to live in a less than eighth of the Gaza Strip. We're talking about 2 million Palestinian people living that way, which is in a very dire condition. we've never heard before in the world and in the history, in light of the killing, the starvation, refrain in the medical supplies from entering the strip in that time. The injured people are getting killed due to the shortage of the medication, which is a very shame on the whole world that they never take any actions up till now to save what is possible from the Palestinian people. Defenseless people have nothing else but to put themselves before the sea, and they're back to the war. So in that way, I think the families of the detainees are following the leaks of some short videos by Hamas, and I think they aren't going to have any good unless if there is a consolidation by the some powers, strong parties, different state institutions, on top of which is the Israeli establishment. If so, I think will have a real resolve and a radical solution to such a crisis between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, specifically Hamas movement, to complete such a deal. Let's say pressure will be continued to be pressuring Netanyahu and the American administration to, as Cairo can provide a radical solution for the deal and to get things back to back to normal before October the 7th. And we have a visit from the Palestinian Prime Minister here in Cairo, and we're talking about a state by Cairo to achieve such a or a file of the detainees, along with the American administration to pressure Netanyahu to submit to achieve and execute the swap of detainees, either they are partially or complete. And it is notably to say that Hamas has already responded reasonably, along with the meetings with the parties of Cairo, along with 7 factions of Palestine, and the meeting of the Palestinian Prime Minister heading to Rafah. All these, and I think after Cairo has already trained 5,000 Palestinian soldiers from the Gaza Strip, along with the Societal Support Committee presided by a public figure in Palestine, away of the factions, away of Hamas. All these are concessions provided by the Palestinian side, and Cairo have managed to convince the Palestinians to enter the aid within Gaza. We have up till now, Israel rejects the entry of Gaza into the north, into the center, in different areas that are very narrow in the Gaza Strip, which are Rafah and Al-Mas area that Israel wants to confine the Palestinian within.
Yes, I get your point, and I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim El Darawy, writer and political analyst. Thank you for joining us here on Q News.